Shalom, friends. We're taking a look today at Parshat Bamidbar with a view to understanding something about the Parsha to help us in our general day-to-day lives. Parshat Bamidbar is the fourth book. It's the start of the fourth book of the Torah. Bereshis, Shemot, Vayikra, Bamidbar, and then Devarim. This is the fourth book of the Torah. And the book is centered around the idea of the Jewish people, known in those days as the Israelites, who were going through the desert in order to reach the land of Israel. The Jewish people, the Israelites at that time, the children of Israel, the children of Jacob and Isaac and Abraham, had been working in slaves in the lands of Egypt. And Moses came and he took the Jewish people, the Israelites, out of Egypt, bringing them into the land of Israel. Along the journey, they had to travel through a desert, a parched land. What is the message exactly of a parched land? What is the message of reaching the land of Israel? What is the message of the very first line of this parsha, of this particular section of the Torah? Let us take a look at the words of the very first line, which give us tremendous insight into something about our own lives. The desert represents a place of emptiness, and in particular on a mystical level, it represents a place of spiritual lack, spiritual loneliness, and a feeling of being disconnected from the creator of the world. Of course, the Israelites were involved in some heavy work when they were in the land of Egypt, and that was very physical. Physicality and spirituality don't really go hand in hand unless, of course, we know exactly how to mix them in the correct way. Surely Torah tells us how to engage in physical things to make them spiritual. But when one engages in the physical only for the sake of physicality, then one begins to develop a certain spiritual loneliness in oneself. Ironically, when one travels through the desert, one finds oneself with the opportunity to become highly spiritual. Let us take a look at the very first line, the very first verse of this parsha. The verse reads, Medaber Hashem el Moshe, and Hashem spoke to Moshe, Bamidbar Sinai, in the desert of Sinai, Be'ohel Moed, in the tent of meeting, Be'echad l'chodesh, on the first of the month, Hasheni, of the second month. This means to say, in other words, in the month of Iyar, because the year begins in the month of Nisan, in terms of, since it was that the Jewish people, the Israelites, were redeemed in the month of Nisan. Nisan already starts out the year. Of course, Tishrei is the beginning of the year in general for judgment, but Nisan is officially the beginning of the year in terms of freedom. L'tzeitzah me'eretz Mitzrayim, as they left and they went out from the land of Egypt, Lamor, saying, God speaks to Moshe in the desert out from the tent of meeting. When one is inside a desert and life is parched and life is spiritually empty, that is the time to engage in the conversation that is necessary to reach out to God, to become more spiritual, to feel the connection to God, and to stop feeling as if one is disconnected. It was in the desert that Moshe is spoken to from God. God did not speak to Moses, in a populated area. He spoke to him in the place of emptiness. When we find ourselves empty, not knowing what life is about, not knowing the meaning of life, and one reaches out and one says, what is the purpose of life? Where am I going? I feel so empty. How do I get by? What should I do? It is there that God enters into the Ohel Moed, into the tent of meeting of the person, and begins to speak to him. What then is the tent of meeting? On a mystical level, this is the heart. Inside the heart of each one of us is a real essence of who we are. Our real emotions are pouring out from our hearts. God says when we find ourselves in a state of spiritual loneliness, then God says, I will enter into your heart, into the tent of meeting, and that's where I'm going to speak to you from the Ohel Moed. When will this occur? Says the Pasuk. According to the verse, it will be, well, as it was according to the story, of course, on the first of the second month of the second year that the Israelites had left. Did it occur days after their leaving, weeks after their leaving, months after their leaving? No. This event occurred already a year later. Because when one finds oneself in a spiritually lonely place, emptiness, and one doesn't know how to progress, one must learn to be patient. One must realize that there is so much that needs to be done, so much that needs to be worked upon. Spirituality is something that doesn't come in a snap. We live in an instantaneous generation where everything must happen immediately. Whatever it is that we're doing. Here I make a video, and I know that when I finished doing the video, I want to snap my fingers and it should be online immediately. Everything must be immediate. The super immediate generation. But the Torah says when it comes to spirituality, things take time. We need to be patient with ourselves. Real spirituality comes with patience. When we're engaged in coming close to Hashem, when we're engaged in studying Torah, when we're engaged in growing in our lives, developing as human beings, finding meaning in life, it doesn't just come from a snap of the fingers. It comes from much patience. But rest assured, says the verse of the Torah, the beginning of the process of reaching out to God comes specifically, dafka, in that place of loneliness in the desert. One day, it may be, we wake up in the morning and we feel we just don't know how to get on with our lives. We're empty. What are we lacking? We're lacking that spirituality. We're lacking the godliness in our lives. We're lacking that meaning which the world is made for. Then God says, if we open ourselves up, says God, I will talk to you from the Ohel Moed. I will talk to you in your heart so that immediately you'll begin to feel my presence. It will take time, but we will get there. It is interesting to note the spiritual sage, the great tzaddik, Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, the great-grandson of the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Hasidic movement, who lived, the Rabbi Nachman in other words, lived from 1772 to 1810. And Rabbi Nachman teaches us that the greatest power that we have in order to reach out to God, to Hashem, is through our power of speech. And look at that, because the word Medaber, to speak, is exactly the same as the word Bamidbar, which means in the desert. Speech of a spiritual nature, when we reach out to God, comes from a very deep place. It comes from a place of loneliness, and when we feel we just don't know what to do. At that point in time, says Rabbi Nachman, take yourselves out. Go to a field, go to an open area, go to a private place, and even in your house, if you don't have a private place outside, go to a room by yourself. Cover yourself with your talit and put your tefillin on. Cover yourself with your duvet that nobody should interrupt and disturb you. Go and stand in the corner if people are disturbing you. It doesn't matter where you are. Separate yourself. Put yourself, so to speak, in the desert of physicality that you feel yourself in spiritually. Put yourself there in that physicality and begin to talk to Hashem. Medaber, Bamidbar. And as we do so, we awaken something from below that causes a connection to bring down a holy force and a holy energy from above. Then Hashem begins to speak to us. If we're looking for meaning, if we're looking how to grow, if we're feeling lonely, don't feel bad. We're in the desert. And there's nothing wrong with that. Because as we progress through our journey in the desert to reach the goal, which is the land of Israel, then we will experience what it is to have freedom. The speech is the beginning of the process. As we discuss what it is that we're going through with Hashem, we make a connection, and as a result of this connection, we're able to feel the presence of Hashem, reach the Holy Land, and it is there that we experience the oneness and the meaning in life and the connection with with Hashem. So don't feel bad if you're experiencing loneliness, spiritual uncertainty, not knowing a direction in life, wanting to connect with the creator of the universe and feeling just out of it. It is there in that place that the journey begins. The speaking, the connection, the tears, the happiness, the feelings, the emotions, everything going on in one's heart. And there Hashem begins to speak to one. The connection begins to be made, and we begin to feel a sense of fulfillment in our lives. When you're looking for fulfillment, feel the desert, feel the connection, and feel Hashem speaking to you from wherever you are in your life at that point in time. I'm Eliyahu Shear from Loving Kindness, www.lovingkindness.co. I wish you everything of the best, and I hope to join you in another Parsha Insight, where we can grow together and feel confident that we are developing and growing in the right direction in this world. A life of true meaning. See you soon.